Maybe some background. So Measure Killer was born out of a client project around 2.5 years ago. Maybe it's almost 3 now. Yeah, so the main use cases of the tool, I think, are to optimize and clean up your Power BI models. So it can tell you which columns and measures you are using in any of the reports or in the model itself, and especially also what part of your model, which columns especially, you don't need at all. And you can take those out without breaking anything. That's the whole idea of the tool. And the other thing is like we can also scan a whole Fabric tenant, all the reports, all the models, and get some cool stuff. But we can look at this at the end. Klaus, please start.
Absolutely. So, as Gregor said, and actually, since Sue mentioned, I'm gonna show you guys the code version. So, yeah, this is the whole thing, basically developing Python, as she mentioned. So let's start. I'm gonna run this guy. And here I have a simple report, very simple. We got some weather data, some economics data for Switzerland, quite simple. A couple of measures, a very normal report, I would say. Some calculated tables, calculation groups, measure table, etc. So just a quick explanation of every mode. We have actually, this can be quite overwhelming because we have right now 7 modes. But basically, the first 2 are designed to run offline with Power BI Desktop, basically. And I'm going to be showing you the basics for mode 1, which is just 1 model and 1 report. Gregor.
Maybe we should say also that the first 2 modes, those are part of the free version of the tool, so anybody can use that. You have a lot of cool stuff in there. Also, you can get Measure Killer through the Microsoft Store or just from measurekiller.com and download it there. And then the rest, the other modes are more like the advanced stuff, and there is a paid version for that.
Exactly. You also can see that there was a little cloud icon. Those 2 are offline. The rest is online. There's the option offline, online also. Online meaning Power BI service, obviously. So let's start. I'm gonna click on the first mode here, and then Measure Killer will scan for the open reports that you have on Power BI Desktop, the model actually, the analysis services instance. We can see that we have the Power BI report for Switzerland here. Just click on next. And the main window will open. Can be a little overwhelming, but you can see that on the top left corner. Just gonna magnify a little bit so you can see also my screen's a little big. So you see that here we already have the report selected with the same name. It's based on the quick access, the last open reports. And since it's already selected, you can just click on run. This will analyze all the measures and columns where they are used and if they are not used, which is basically the main goal of Measure Killer. It's telling if a column and the measures and columns in your report are used or not, and if they are used, where exactly. Let's do this. I'm gonna run. Will take a little time. It's a small report. Depends on the amount of visuals that you have and also measures and columns. Important to say also that we don't look at the data. So for example, we have reports with 1 gigabyte of size, of disk size, and it will take way less than this report. For example, that it's 30 megabytes big, I think, something like that. But anyway, so after you run, you can see that we have this nice summary here on the bottom left, which will tell you basically the most important information of your model. So based on the size, we have 78% used, 16 unused, and 7% used by unused. I will explain what that means exactly later. We have also local data table, unused measures. So this is basically a summary of your model. On the right side, we have a very detailed results table where you can check exactly all of your columns and measures. If they are red, they are unused. If they are yellow, they are used by unused. So, and then if they are just with no background, they're used. And if they are used, you can expand and check exactly where they are used. So for example, the country column from the table TR countries is used in an artifact, is used in a relationship, in a calculated table, and in one single visual, a card visual. If they are yellow, meaning the status is used by unused, they are only used by artifacts that are either used by unused also or unused. So basically you can also eliminate those measures. They are just used by unused stuff, basically. Any questions so far? Can be a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of information on the screen, I guess.
Yeah. So we had a question earlier from Takami about if it can help you write DAX, but I said we can search DAX code, right? If you can go to the DAX expressions, for example, we can see all the calculated tables, calculated columns, and measures, of course, and all their code. So you can, if you search for like all or filter, you can just see in everything where are you using a filter function, which can be quite cool because maybe you're looking for stuff that is not that great.
Exactly. Yeah, we also, Gregor, we try to not write that much to the model. We have a couple
Right.
of write operations. We kind of, we could, but since there are other tools like Dex Studio for that, we try not to write that much to the model. What we do write to is killing measures, removing them automatically, or restoring them. So if you remove one measure using measure killer, you can then later click here and restart the measure to that model. Sorry.
And you do tend to find that you use, I know when I'm developing or exploring data or you know, you've got messy data and you're trying to make sense. With exploring it, you create lots of measures and you don't necessarily use all of them when you push the report into production. So it's an excellent way to actually think which ones am I using and which am I not. And especially if you get given a report by somebody else. And then it's like, oh, what is this?
Absolutely, yes. I also use a lot, particularly me, when I'm developing a report, I used to check where measures are used, exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
So I can tell, like, for example, I want to replace a measure or make it more generalistic, let's say, and I want to check where measures are used exactly, so I know what's going on. Also useful.
Yeah.
Can you maybe tell people what exactly we consider as used?
Absolutely, yes. So used is basically the unused or used by unused. If you remove those columns or measures, nothing will happen with your report. That's the idea. So if we tell it's unused, it's absolutely unused anywhere in your report or model. So basically we'll check. We basically have 3 areas of that we check, which are all the areas from a Power BI report, let's say. It is the visual part. So let's say everything that you do in a chart, a filter, maybe conditional formatting, visual level filters here, for example, report level filters, page level filters, also, what else? I don't know. Basically everything that is in the report part.
Sort by even Power Query, right? So it could be that a column is only used in a join in Power Query and then you never actually load it into the front end or something. Then basically it also shows up here because yeah, this join will break down, right, if you remove that column.
Exactly.
So we're trying to cover everything.
That would be the second area, right? Power Query, which is the trickiest one, by the way, because you have to consider some stuff and just ignores other, like when you import Excel, for example, you have a renaming step where you rename the columns, and we ignore that, for example. And the third area would be in the model itself, which is artifacts, row level security, relationships, sorting. When you do sorting, when you sort a column using another column, and also basically everything, calculated tables. Yeah.
We can see, we have this little, in the metadata, you have those like 20 different ways to, like, is used here, is used in relationship, is used. Can you show that?
I always found that fascinating to try and understand how, not so much in the DAX, the model side, but in the Power Query element, how you can then work out how you can delete it safely, because you must have to go through all of the M query to see, and especially if you're changing, like you say, names and things like that, how you then programmatically work out whether you can delete something or not.
That is one of the most difficult parts of Measure Killer, actually. Power Query, the M language itself is it's really, there's a word for it, I forgot, but it's, let's say, complex to analyze. It's the syntax can be really tricky, so we try to use some tricks to improve, and obviously so we don't break anything when you remove something from Measure Killer. So the main idea basically is adding the step at the end where you remove measures. Yeah. Let me show you exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
So here, for example, in the Q columns where we rewrite the M code, you can see that the last step, actually, let me copy this guy, fact weather.
Yeah, I loved that when I found that out and I started doing it, and right at the end it was like remove, because it just gives you the confidence to know that you can just take it out if you don't want it there.
Exactly. Exactly. So if I just paste the new code here, you will see them. Sorry about that. You will see that we add a new step, columns remove by Measure Killer. So basically, those columns you can remove in the last step, and that's what Measure Killer does. It is adding to the last step. So for example, if you move this guy upwards, it can break, obviously. It will break here, for example, in the change type, because it's just automatically detecting the type and then changing. So if you move that step upwards, it can break that other step. Basically, what Measure Killer guarantees is that if you add this step as a last step, the columns removed by Measure Killer, it will not break the report when you import, and will reduce the overall size of your PBIX or PBIP files folder in that case, and when it's PBIP. I'm sorry, I was just showing you guys the metadata. So for example, this is the overall everything that we check. So there is model, artifacts, measures, or calculated columns, relationships, sorting, tables, hierarchy, field parameters, calculation items, the whole thing. Row level security, page native reports for the premium versions, also Excel also. So if you have analyzing Excel, so this is the whole, every single field that we analyze.
So sorry, I'll be interrupting all the time. So using this will enable you to see if a paginated report is built from the semantic model.
Not in the free version.
Not necessarily, but in the paid version.
So, yeah, so basically that's where we draw the line. Similar to Power BI, you need premium for paginated reports, and actually not for analyzing Excel, but so those are features that are only part of the paid version of the tool. But you can, and maybe I can show this quickly, you can analyze a shared semantic model with multiple Power BI reports connected in the free version of MeasureKiller as well.
Wow.
So that's something that we're giving away, and I think it's really amazing. This is the second mode. So this was what Klaus just showed, like just one single report, but then you have a model and multiple reports connected, and they are connected, of course, in the Power BI service. But if you download the semantic model and have it open, like I have here, this IMDb dataset, and then you also download the thin files, those reports with a live connection in the Power BI service, you can analyze those in MeasureKiller, and I'm just gonna drag and drop. So those are all my thin files now, those thin reports. And this is the model. As you can see, there's a big model, but then I'm just gonna drag and drop the reports. I'm gonna run it, and then MeasureKiller, just like we saw before, will tell me, first of all, like, yeah, you see, I can save a lot of storage here, but then it will show me that, yeah, this measure is used on those pages in the various reports that I selected. So
Brilliant. That's lovely, isn't it? Because that's one of the key things when you build a semantic model and you run the thin reports off it, is if you don't want to delete something in a semantic model that is maybe attached to the report, but is also then feeding some of the thin reports.
Exactly. And so if you can download everything, you have everything locally, then you can use the free version for this, but it's only Power BI reports. And then when we remove, so we saw that we can remove unused columns by changing the M code. So MeasureKiller will give us all the queries in Power Query that have unused columns. And you can see even it's sorted by the size I can save. So just in this one query, I can save 450 megabytes. And we saw that we just paste the M code, but then all the DAX stuff, meaning the measures and calculated columns, you can remove this by killing. That's where the name comes from. You just remove it direct by writing to the model, or you can also get a C# script. You can do it in Tabular editor. And that actually, when you kill stuff, that's basically then there's no way back. So for that, and I think Henrik in the chat asked this question, what happens then? For that, we have a restore functionality. So everything I ever removed on this computer with MeasureKiller will be backed up, some small JSON files. Yeah. And in my case, actually, I put a OneDrive folder. So then it's synced across all my devices, and also all the other guys in the team can remove stuff. So it's basically like a shared folder, and we have all our backups here, and you can see the name of the measure, from which table it was removed, what it was, when, by who, and also removed from which model. Yeah. And then you can select those and put it back into the model if you want to. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. We also have some other stuff here, but I'm sure people have questions, so please.
Yeah, that's amazing. Any questions? I haven't been monitoring the chat because I've been too busy. Yeah, it's a question by Henrik where the deleted measures are stored. I mean, it's just, I remember the first time I used it and all the reds came up and I was like, oh, delete, kill.
Yeah, and it could be gigantic. Like we've seen some columns that are like almost like gigabytes of size, and maybe they're not used anywhere. Nobody knows. That's the problem. There's nothing built into Power BI that tells you if something is used or not. And that's why I think it's a very easy way to optimize stuff, because optimization is a very complex topic. You need to know a lot about everything. You need to also know about the business logic and so on. So this is a very easy way to just take out everything that you actually don't need right now, at least. And it will increase the refresh performance. It will reduce the refresh time, and also improve performance overall. So it's a very cheap, easy way, I think, to improve something. in Power BI.
So how does it fit in with Tabular Editor? How would you see it fitting in with Tabular Editor and DAX Studio? And because I mean, you can see so many of the advantages to each of these tools, and this is, just to see the red is not used anywhere, and no, you can really clean up your model, because whether you're taking over someone else's or whether you're developing your own, quite often as part of that exploratory process, you explore, but then you don't necessarily need things, or you want to delete them, or you want to make it, before you push it into production or give it to your customer, you don't want to have to maintain things that aren't of any use at all. So, to be able to actually streamline at the end and go, right, I've done it, I've got what I wanted, everyone's happy. It's like Anthony said in the chat, he uses it all the time when he's finished as a cleanup mechanism. So you can definitely see the value, but it's, for some people, learning Power BI is already quite a jump. But then to start thinking about Tabular Editor and then DAX Studio and Measure Killer, it's how they all fit in together.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the tools are not really for beginners. We try to make it beginner friendly, but I understand also that a lot of people are just overwhelmed and don't understand what's going on. I think that the main difference is that this tool also looks into the report, right? So Tabular Editor and DAX Studio are for the model. DAX Studio especially is I would say, expert level tool to optimize DAX queries. Very complex. I still don't understand half of it, probably.
I've done the course and read the book. I know some. I know enough to be dangerous.
And we try to provide mostly the analysis. So we're not. I mean, most people, maybe locally, they do the killing and removing stuff. We actually also have this one-click optimization, which is pretty new. So there you don't have to do anything yourself anymore. It creates a new file where everything is already taken out. Like, it just gives you one clean file. And but this is only for PBIP. So you need to have a Power BI project file to take advantage of this. But this is like the easiest way to just optimize everything in one click. It takes, even calculated tables takes everything out. But generally people use it also to see the impact, right? Like what Klaus said at the beginning, I have a measure, it's used in, I don't know, 10 pages. Where exactly do I need to check if things are working once I adjust the measure expression? Those things are very useful, I think, in Measure Killer. Klaus?
Yes, just to answer Sue's question, me particularly, I use almost daily Tabular Editor, DAX Studio, and Measure Killer, one for each task. For example, Tabular Editor I used to change the model. DAX Studio I used to optimize the DAX expressions, and Measure Killer I use to see where stuff is used, basically. That's my not only for that, obviously, but that's my 3 main use cases for each tool.
I think that's a really nice summary. Really nice summary. So some of the questions in the chat. Takimi said she feels like it's a good tool for a hoarder like her, so that when you created a model, it is an excellent tool for actually cleaning it out afterwards to make sure that you get rid of the unnecessary things that you may have built. And I think as a beginner as well, quite often, you do build a lot of unnecessary things because you're exploring and you're playing and you're trying. And I think the free version, it is fairly easy to use, Gregor. I didn't struggle to. Yeah. Don't remember.
But you're also an expert. You're not.
Oh no, this was years ago. It's been out a few years. Well. I've used it before. I think 3 years ago. It's been out over 3 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, almost 3 years. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I use more and more is the M expressions search. So I just have a couple of queries here, but I work a lot with data engineers in projects, and they start asking me, hey, where are you using this view? Hey, I'm gonna adjust this table. Can you check if everything is like, and here I can just, search all the M code. And especially, I mean, of course, then if I run like a shared model, something more complex, I can run, I could even run all the M code in the whole tenant, like all the models at once, and search that and see exactly where this view from the database is used all across our semantic models.
Wow. How do you get it to do that?
So for that, we need to
Are you
get
raising your eyebrows at me, Klaus?
Let's go step by step.
I missed nothing.
Let's look at next thing would be to look at a model that is more complex in the sense that it has Power BI reports connected, but also paginated reports and even maybe some Excel files. Yeah, and this is our famous weather data set. We also usually show this in demos. And now we're in the Power BI service, also getting some little infos, like there's a report in a personal workspace. For that, I need to be a tenant admin, and we have a special mode for that. So you can see here's most of the ways to run MeasureKiller is for developers, but then there's also something for tenant admins, like the Fabric admins, the Power Platform admins. But now I'm gonna show you a more complex model and how, yeah, the tool can help you there basically to get everything that is connected. Like you can see here with a bunch of Power BI reports. They all have a live connection to this weather data set, paginated reports, even composite models. So that it can do as well. And then, of course, you get the full picture, right? That's the idea.
Are you using Python to do it? Are you using semantic link labs to see what's doing?
No, we're using different API calls basically. So it also works for the pro workspaces, as you can see here. So it doesn't have to be premium. Actually, if I run it as a tenant admin, and that's really the best way to analyze a semantic model, because then I would also find things that I don't even have access to with my user. But since I'm an admin, we can use the fancy API calls to find everything. And I'm just going to show you now. Like now I run the same thing again, and you can see there are a few more things here where actually it's even telling me that I don't have access, but it found it anyway, because now we're running the scanner API calls. Even looking into people's personal workspaces if we want to, because somebody could have built the report also on top of a productive model in a personal workspace, and you will rarely find those. And we want to have the full picture. That's why, yeah, if you run it as an admin, you can really find everything. And we've seen hundreds of reports connected to some models for clients. So.
Yeah. And especially if some of them are stored in the personal workspaces and you can't, and people leave or something, then you can't get access to them.
And it's possible that people are using those reports because in another part of the tool, we can also see all the access and stuff. And surprisingly, a lot of people have no idea what's going on in personal workspaces. And that's also where we try to add a lot of nice little features to tell you what's happening there.
Yeah. I remember I did Melissa Coates' data governance course. And there was a few people on at Enterprise, and they were just saying it's, as soon as you open up Power BI, it can just be like crazy, just with people creating reports and workspaces and actually trying to, have some element of governance and security to understand who's doing what with whom and creating which reports. Because there are so many different settings in the tenant admin that you need to be aware of. And if you don't turn them off, then, your data can be all over the place.
I mean, we've heard from a lot of different companies all over the world, and one even they had a best practice to build all the reports in personal workspaces. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Well, you didn't know
Um,
when you first started, did you? We didn't know.
yeah, maybe exactly. Now we're kind of laughing about it, but yeah, it's sad that those are good, but also really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, you have to struggle with it, especially if you're an admin and trying to keep control of stuff. Um, Here also, since I'm an admin, I also have an option to get from the activity logs, see who is doing analyze in Excel on top of this model. So that's the other thing we can find out who are the Excel users building stuff maybe on their computers, on their local machines, having an Excel,
Ah,
analyze an Excel file, because what if they use a column and it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
used in any report, but then they will have it and this will break, right? If we clean up our model, it would break. So the idea here is to find the Excel people. In this case, it's me. But then we can add the Excel files. I can add it here as a local file. So if those controllers, finance people, they send me their analyze an Excel file, I can add it here and it will include that in the analysis.
Ah. So do you find, because I mean, if, a few years ago it was analyzing Excel was the main way that you attached, because I love Excel, and I love be. I know people say to encourage people into Power BI, but I tend to, for my users, it's whatever they're happy with. If they're happy with Power BI, I build in Power BI. If they're happy with Excel, they get Excel based on a semantic model, and they're happy with that. And as long as they use it, then that's the main thing, and it drives whatever they need to do. But the analyze in Excel was the only way, really, wasn't it? A few years ago, but now we've got all sorts of ways that we can pull data in from a semantic model. So you must have to continually think about how Microsoft are changing what it does to ensure that you keep your tool up to speed.
Yes, and also there are some things that we would like to include and we cannot, like
Yeah.
those exploration items. If you go to a semantic model here in the Power BI service and you go to explore this data, and then it's just a nice way to check what's in a model without having Power BI desktop or building an actual report.
Ah,
You can just see some basic stuff here. It's like a tiny version of Power BI with very limited options, but those can be saved, and then it's like a little artifact in the Power BI in the workspace. Um, and those are also people have asked us, hey, what about somebody's using something in those exploration items? And I don't know how we can get this. That would be nice to have, but so
yeah.
far
I
it's
haven't used
new
those
and
yet.
it's nice. It's nice
Yeah.
actually because yeah, if you don't know the model, and you just want to see, what is in this column or something without any tools, just in the browser, it's quite
Yeah.
nice. But
Yeah.
for us, maybe it will become a headache at some point if Microsoft doesn't offer some kind of API to get this. Yeah,
Yeah. To find out what it is. I'm loving
exactly.
paginated reports in the service as well, just so that you're doing exactly that. You just build a tiny little report from another report that you can use it. So talking about any questions there. Love-hate relationship with Excel. Keeps breaking it. I think that's the thing with Excel. I love it because you can do anything with it. But as a data source, it's a nightmare because you can do anything with it.
So if I'm happy with this, it's the whole point of this here is just to select what is important and what is not, and then you can run, and it will actually grant you access to the workspaces. Since I'm running it as a tenant admin, it will grant me access to the workspaces where I chose some reports just for the analysis. It will give me contributor access actually, and then it will ask me to take away the access again once it got all the the dependencies, all the where everything is used. So now it's getting all this metadata. It's doing this in the Power BI service, obviously.
Yeah.
And then now it's telling me, yeah, you want to take away this access again? And I say, yeah. And now it's done. And this is more complex than what we have seen before, because, for example, if I sort here, I can see that this name column is used 41 times all across. I selected 10, 15 reports. So I can see it's used in 27 visuals on all kinds of pages in all those reports. Even if you have report level measures, it will show up in Measure-Killer. So here in the DAX expressions, we can see them very well. Some DAX code is part of the model. Most of the DAX code is part of the model. But then you can see also here, we have some report level measures. So those are, for people who are not sure about this, this is something I build on top of the semantic model in the live connection,
Yeah.
on the report with live connection.
Yeah.
Very good. Just a quick question on the visuals. When you're going through those, is that just the standard name of the visual, or is that the actual name that you've given it in the selection pane?
So if
that's
we
a good question.
If we have a title, you can see here, for some we have a title, and for some we just have the type. So if the visual doesn't have a title, we show the type of the visual. Otherwise, we will show the title.
Oh, cool. So that gives that makes it even more important for people to actually name the artifacts on a page of a report, so it's a lot easier to trace. You look at all those slices there. Well, which slice are you referring to?
Exactly. Yes. So you can right click a lot of times in the tool, and then it also gives you like the width, the height, the coordinates. But obviously, this is still, you have to put in some effort to
some mental
figure out
processing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your X, Y. Yeah. Couple of questions. For the and you might have answered this. Henry said, for the connected reports, can you see if they're used at all, or is that a for tool? I think.
Yeah. So once you add the reports here, we will have them in the DAX expressions as well, right? So they're part of the report layout, so they will show up here. We actually have a separate mode for analysis services, one for SQL Server analysis services, and if you're just a developer, for Azure analysis services too. And then if you're a tenant admin, it will find all the reports that are connected to analysis services. That is the online mode. But yeah, that works.
Is that still with an on-prem? Because he's asking about report level measures from reports connected to an on-prem SQL Server analysis services through a gateway. Does it make any difference?
Yeah, so I mean, we cannot get those automatically. So you would need to you would need to drag and drop them into the tool, like what I did in the previous
beginning.
Yeah. So that way, if you add the reports there, we will have their DAX expressions.
Have you thought about the DAX visual calculations now? Will it cover those as well?
Yeah, it already does, actually. I'm not sure if I guess we don't have any visual calcs here.
Visual calculations.
Yeah, what did I call it?
DAX calculations on the visuals.
You knew what I meant, Gregor.
I have to search here.
Visual
here.
calcs, is it?
Let's see.
I was looking at those and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to use DAX in another way as well.
Yeah. I don't have any of them in this report, but here used in visual calculations. Here you can see.
Ah, brilliant.
We also, you could even use something only in the mobile layout of a report, which was a pain at one point for us. But that also is tracked. Yeah, like row level security, a key column, row label, column sorting, field parameters, calculation items. We're trying to track everything. Yeah. So.
Oh, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Because it's all coming from the metadata, isn't it? Surrounding the model, and then it's attaching to that and understanding how it works.
We also have a cool function to find duplicate DAX expression. This is something I really like because a lot of times people build measures with the same expressions and they just have different names. Like here you can see this has just a random function, but you have the same measure 3 times with the same expression. And here we take the expression, we take out any comments and any white space, and then we'll say, okay, if it's then the same, then it's a duplicate according to our logic. And later on, I can also, so now approaching the last 15 minutes, we also have this tenant analysis. This is really the coolest thing we have built. And I'm just going to open a sample file here.
I want to see this, please. I've got a couple that this would really work for.
And here you can now find duplicates across the whole tenant. So this is really, imagine you can see, across all the models, where do we have exactly the same DAX expression. And this can get super complex and crazy, of course, but a lot of times I heard from people that they don't want to have duplicates. They want to have one measure that is calculating that. And other people, they said, hey, actually, we should have the same calculation to make sure it aligns along the corporate, guidelines. So this can help here. But generally, tenant analysis is running basically a metadata scan of all workspaces, meaning you can see here at the left bottom, just what do I have in our tenant? Like we have 700 models, 750 reports. We have these Premium Pro personal workspaces, Fabric items.
Useful if you decide whether you're going to renew or set up, keep with your trial.
Right.
Can you see who's using it?
What do you mean using?
So can you see, so you can see it on there. Does it show you sort of how often, say you've got 700 reports, can you see?
Yeah.
Would it be able to show you how often they're opened or?
Yes, so we have a function for that actually. So one thing we get from the activity logs are the Excel users. So we can see for every model who is doing Excel and when and so on. But then we also get all the report views. So for the paginated reports and the Power BI reports, we get who is viewing them, how often and when and so on. And so in this list here that you can see of all the Power BI reports in our tenant, we also have the views and the views per day. This is just a sample. That's why the numbers are very low.
So I could push this against one of my tenants. It would show me all of the reports in the actual tenant, and then I could sort by descending order, and those reports that haven't been opened in a year or used and they're not attached to anything.
We get the last 30 days. So that's the maximum we can get, but it's building up a history. So you can see here, it goes, the sort is off, unfortunately here, but we already fixed this. But if you do it every 30 days, you can build up the whole last year at some point because it's keeping this on your machine as a little SQLite database.
Oh, I love that.
Gregor, with that historic data that you're running through that, could you actually point that data not just to a SQLite on your personal machine, but onto like a corporate sort of the company database somewhere?
We try to keep everything very restrictive, local, not to get into any data, security wobbly situations. So that's why we have exports for that. So everything from tenant analysis, and we have a lot of tabs here. You can export, for example, those report views, and then you just get a little JSON file with that. Or you just export this as an Excel file, whatever you want. But so the actual database, I think you can probably, it's not encrypted, I think. So you can reuse it. But it's a SQLite database. So we're not pushing this anywhere.
You can
actively.
take it from the SQLite and push it into wherever.
Yeah, it's in this app data folder. That's where
Oh yeah, so where
it's
all your
basically here
macros, etc., all stored.
where
Yeah,
the backups are and so on.
yeah.
Okay. And then obviously those pages, the pages column there, if you open that out, that'll then list out the pages associated with it.
Actually, so this little database is just for those activity logs and these kind of things.
Ooh.
Everything that is in the UI is you can push exports, like you can do, I don't know, get all the M expressions in a tenant and so on. But that's not stored in the database. That's just kept in memory. And you can export it if you want to. Or you
Okay.
can also save it, which is interesting because imagine you run this tenant scan. It takes 2 hours because you have thousands of workspaces, and you can save a .measurekiller file, and then tomorrow you can load it back because you don't want to run it again and wait. So, and then you have all this available,
Yeah.
and can again export stuff. But
Okay.
Can you? I'm guessing
Mhm.
not able to automate it to run it on the 1st of every month or something like that.
we're working on something, but yeah, this is coming soon. But it's tricky
Ooh.
because we have to deal with different forms of authentication, and
Yeah,
how
yeah.
do we automate that? It's not very easy to do.
Yeah, no, I can
Good.
imagine.
Takami just asked whether this stuff is available on the free version. I'm assume not.
No, so yeah, everything in the Power BI service, whatever I do there, that's part of the paid version. But if we give free trials to everyone, so if you're curious, you want to try it out, you can get a 1 month free trial if you just fill out. It's on our website. It's also in the tool here.
Cool.
Maybe I can post a link. Yeah, everybody can get a free trial if they want to. Just put it in the chat. Yeah.
And what's the paid version? What's the retail for the paid version?
So we have a pricing also for smaller companies,
Yeah.
like small teams like ours. That's just like $80 per month.
Okay,
But
it's not.
the enterprise version is per user, it's around €1,000 per year. And that also includes support, but
Yeah.
so similar to other tools.
Yeah. You have to think about how much time it would save you. It saves you to do that. I always think of, you look at it and, you can think, oh, but it's actually all about time and efficiency. And if you think,
Yeah.
especially if you've got premium and you're paying for refresh rate and your model's bloated and huge, then, you're paying for, capacity. Question from Henrik, how do you track if an Excel file is using the model? Again, I have an angle on an on-prem SAS gateway connected reports. Because you showed how you could track.
Right. So
Excel
we're pulling this
using-
from the Power BI activity logs. So if somebody is using Excel on top of analysis services, I think that wouldn't show up in the Power BI logs. So then we wouldn't know. So this is really if somebody is doing Excel on top of a Power BI model in the service. So that's the limitation.
Okay.
But we also have nice lineage here. So for every Power BI model, you can see all the reports that are connected, even if the model is pulling from a data flow. So you can get a nice little lineage, or
like
you can
that.
or you can go to the data sources and you see, okay, I have this AdventureWorks analysis services, which models are pulling from that database, and then which reports are connected. So we have nice lineage view of those kind of things also.
Because that was one of the tricky ones to start with, was understanding where data flows were being used.
Right.
Yeah. And especially,
Yeah,
if you then change, because the naming of data flows was a real issue at the start, and then you want to change the name, and then of course you don't know how many people are using the data flow, because anyone can, if they've got access to the data flow, could use it without, necessarily you knowing if you've given them access. Which you want them to be able to do if it's, standard things like dates. You want a data flow. Yeah.
We also put all the access here. So since we have to be a tenant admin to run this, we can also get all the access that a user has in Fabric or a security group. So here, for example, you can see I have access to 13 workspaces, here, admin, contributor, whatever. And then I also directly, either by having been shared the model or indirectly through the workspace, I have access to those 57 models and so on. So it's also nice
That's
from
brilliant. If you've got someone that's
governance.
moving or leaving or
Right.
or
And then, of
taking
course, we have
part
it.
in espionage, corporate espionage.
Yeah, we also have that for the workspace, of course, but it's not that
Yeah.
nice. One thing that I really like to show is the reports, because here we can also go into the personal workspaces. And then now I can see all the reports in personal workspaces, and you can see some stuff is highlighted here. So those are people who were shared a report in a personal workspace, but they're not the owner, they're somebody else. So Klaus here has access to a report in my personal workspace. He even has reshare rights. So here you can see what people are really like. Sometimes there are like 20, 30 people who have access to somebody's report in personal workspace, and could be a problem in some cases.
Yeah. It's a good job you trust Klaus.
Yeah, I mean, for us, there is nothing sensitive here, really.
Yeah.
And
yeah, definitely. Data governance tool, hugely Takami. And especially because didn't you used to have I can never remember the it's part of you used to have this security authentication group. It's not the right word. Quite often to open up the APIs, you needed to have a
service principal.
That's it. Service. Oh, thank you, Anthony. You've got my back today. Service principal. The brain's not clicked on. Well, it is.
Right.
Python.
I was about to ask that question to say, Gregor, does it support service principals?
Or do you need to have service principal? Because I find getting tenant admin is easier than getting service principal.
Oh yeah, service principals are a pain. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's for the automation scenarios especially relevant. The only thing is some API calls that we're doing are not supported for service principals yet. So you cannot run Measure Killer with a service principal currently. So you still need to authenticate with a user. And especially here, the user has to have tenant admin.
Yeah. So tenant admin, people, some of the companies I work for, the IT are quite happy to give me tenant admin for Power BI because they know it's Power BI, but trying to get service principal, they don't want, that's a whole different conversation, which quite often doesn't end in a positive light. So to have something like this with tenant admin makes such a difference to be able to see what's happening.
Yeah, this is the model view here. This is one of the coolest tabs, or at least people like this the most. Imagine you see all the semantic models in the tenant in a nice table, and you can sort it by the size. You can see how many queries or tables, columns, calculated columns, like 90 calculated columns, local date tables. Oh God. And then we have this violation score, which goes from Power BI Pro to Power BI Criminal. And this is just the BPA rules. I think it was already in the chat, where you can just see, do not do this and where it's violated. So
can you choose your own BPA rules?
No, and I get this question a lot, unfortunately, but for us, this is very, very complex, and it would take us maybe months even to do something like this. You can choose which ones you want to include. So in the UI, you can at least set, which ones from the ones that Microsoft gives us you want to include, but you cannot make your own.
Okay. Well, that's good, because I mean, there's some that yes, definitely best practice, completely adhere to, but there are a few that I just think, that wouldn't be appropriate.
I agree. And it also depends on what you're trying to do in your reports and your models.
Yeah,
there
I
might
think
be a
that
reason
Pavel
why
said.
I've got a bi-directional relationship or whatever. So, so Gregor, how many beers did it take, or how much discussion was it about the different categories on your best practices score?
Oh,
Hey?
well,
Power BI criminal. Who came up with that one?
I think it was Klaus. Actually, here you can also see how we calculate this. It got a little complex because we had different ways, and we knew which were the worst models in our tenant, and we wanted to have a certain score for that. And then the other models, we didn't want to have them as Power BI criminals necessarily.
Yeah.
So we built this score, and yeah, it's with a log, and I don't know, Klaus got away with his math here. I don't understand exactly, but it's all
Did
in.
he sit with his beer on a Friday afternoon and work it out? I can imagine that.
I think
like the villain in James Bond with his cat, thinking, yeah.
And it could be so because also like if you have a big model, we didn't want all big models to automatically be Power BI criminals, right? So
No,
you have to
yeah.
have a lot of crap there. And for us, it's especially like, I don't know, just local date tables, I think are just such a bad thing. And you can search for them here.
I know.
Yeah, it's just not great.
I understand why Microsoft keep it in, but we've got a couple more minutes, and then you know what time it is. It's yoga time soon. Gregor is very happy to support me in my yoga zen. So anyone, any questions for Gregor? Oh, no problem, Nigel. Nice to have you back, and Happy New Year. It's lovely to see you all here. I hope you all had a lovely holiday and had a chance to have some of a bit of a break. And Gregor's posted the chat for you to have a go on the form to get your downloading. The recording will be on the YouTube channel. I think Anthony posted it in the chat, but we'll post it in again, or you can see it on the meetup group. It's has anyone got it to hand? So it'll be on, if you look on the notifications. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Anthony. If you look on the what we tend to do is everything is popped into the there's the links to the GitHub, and there's the links to YouTube or in the notifications. Next week we've got Alexander Arvidsson, hopefully I've pronounced it correctly, who's talking about data governance, and that's not being recorded. He's requested for it not to be recorded, so it's one that you'll have to turn up and watch, but hopefully we'll all be awake then. This has been absolutely brilliant, Gregor. I have thoroughly enjoyed. I always enjoy chatting to you and learning about Measure Killer and how it's grown. But this is it's brilliant to see it grow, and how you're using everything because it's just what we need, really. Because I don't want to be writing API calls. In fact, I don't know how to write the API calls. I look at them and I don't know. I remember doing Melissa's course and trying to do it and just thinking, yeah.
Yeah, if you have any good ideas, we're always looking for feedback. We're always looking for cool things that are hard to do and where people need to spend a lot of time. And we're trying to maybe add it to the tool. Like row level security was this big topic. You could never find out who was added to the groups, right? To the roles in this Power BI service. So that was one of the features we were able to add before Christmas. So if anybody has some suggestions, please send it to us.
Yeah. I hope you're listening, Fernando. Fernando's new job at the moment, or his current job, is he's analysing lots and lots of Power BI report models using Tabular Editor, Measure Killer, and DAX Studio. So anything you think of, Fernando?
I will. Thank you, Gregor.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any last questions before we let Gregor go and have some supper? We'll go skiing. Have you been skiing this year? Is the snow there?
No, not really, unfortunately.
No. It's just raining here in the UK. Rain and wind. But yeah. Anyway, any last questions from anyone? If not, I will wish you a very, very pleasant evening, and I'll stop recording now. So let me stop recording. Stop recording. There we go. Recording stopped. So